After the Dutch Grand Prix, there's no denying that Oscar Piastri is now the firm favourite to win this year's F1 Championship. So what are the implications other than the fact that Piastri is now the firm favourite when it comes to how we view Norris and Piastri's campaign and their status, as whether they're championship caliber drivers? I mean, the biggest litmus test to see if a driver is championship caliber is if they've actually won a championship deservedly. And I said half a year to a year ago that Piastri is a championship caliber driver. Whether he's going to win it this year or sometime in the future, I believe that he's going to win it deservedly. When it comes to Norris, there's a massive question mark. I've never denied that he has world-class pace. For many years, he's shown that in terms of elite midfield performances in 2022, 2023. And in 2024, he showed a lot of pace, but in a high-pressure situation, he capitulated. And I think that we're seeing a lot of this year again. He's making the same mistakes again, which is sort of reinforcing and consolidating the idea that he is not championship caliber. On the other hand, Piastri, with less experience in F1, with less experience in high-pressure title fight situations like Norris, is on balance the better driver this year. He's been more consistent than Norris, and in terms of pace, I would say they've been quite neck and neck. But the fact that Piastri is on par with Norris, with about half the experience that Norris has in F1 and less experience in high-pressure situations, as I said, is very impressive and a testament that he is championship caliber. Now, as I said, Piastri is now the firm favourite to win this championship. He's got a 34-point lead with 9 races to go. So I'm going to outline the scenarios that I think can happen in terms of, what Norris has to do to actually win this championship, to cut down this deficit. Because ultimately, if Norris wants to win this championship, he needs to really change so many things. In terms of pace, the pace is definitely there. I think that he doesn't need to, over push the car. He seems to understand the car, even though Piastri, at least in the first half of the season, seemed to be more comfortable in this year's car. Norris has shown that his ceiling of pace is incredible. Just look at the Austrian Grand Prix, the margin which he got poled by, and obviously some of his other qualifying and race performances. That's not the issue for Norris. The issue for Norris is simply the facets of what makes a championship caliber driver, how complete a championship caliber driver is in terms of their consistency, their racecraft, their mentality, their application. So Norris has that natural raw pace, the ceiling is very high, but the application, the consistent application throughout the season is a big issue. And I think that in these last 9 races, in order to win the championship, he has to beat Piastri in at least 6 of the last 9. And I mean, that is not just in qualifying. The important thing is in the races. Norris has shown, even with some poor qualifying performances like in Canada, he can recover it in the races. But in Canada, I mentioned that that's a very important one because it shows Norris has very good race pace. Norris has the potential to recover when he's had a slow start to the weekend. But the biggest issue is the racecraft, the mentality. He has to show a lot of patience because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Even though most of the races have gone by this season, there's still 9 races to go. It's an incredibly long season. So there's still a marathon to go. And when I say that, there's also many sprint races. There's many more points up for grab for Norris. So I think in terms of, I didn't even consider the sprint races. If we're just thinking about race weekends, right? Just the races, actually, not the race weekends, just the races, the Sunday race. I'm not even going to consider sprints where Norris can pick up a couple more points on Piastri. But if Norris wins 6 of those 9 races, Piastri wins 3, and we assume hypothetically that they finish 1-2 in the next 9 races, which I doubt, but let's just assume that for sake of argument. That's like a 21-point swing in favour of Norris because he has 3 more wins than Piastri, because Obviously, gap between P1 and P2 is 7 points, and he does that 3 times. So 21 points. That cuts down the 34-point deficit to, not enough to win the championship, but let's say he wins when I say 6 of the next 9, that's including the final race, but it can be 6 of the next 8, and Piastri wins the last race. But let's say Piastri also has an engine DNF. I'm saying Norris has to win 6 of the next 9 to have somewhat of a chance. Otherwise, he has no chance unless Piastri capitulates and has some insane misfortune, which the probability of that is almost negligible at this point. But the possibility of Piastri having a small slip up somewhere that can cost him, a potential win or potential P2 and a couple points, that can bring Norris into contention to such a level where he's not only within a race win, he's within sort of less than 10 points of Piastri in the final race or in the final few races to be able to actually claw back the championship. Now, this seems like a big ask, but as I said, the pace is there for Norris. It's just about being consistent, being in the right headspace. But Piastri is not only the favourite because of the points cushion that he has, he's also the favourite because of past experience, how well he's done thus far this year. And when we look at the point situation, this is very akin to the situation last year when Norris was chasing Verstappen. And Norris was, like the one hunting Verstappen, which is quite interesting because, Verstappen is known as that sort of alpha predatory, driver of F1 who puts pressure on his opponents because of how consistently fast he is. And that's sort of what happened to Norris. Norris was the one that was supposed to do that to Verstappen while chasing him down. And he capitulated, in superior machinery in the middle to second part of that season. So this year, it's even harder for Norris because he's got a competent teammate in the same car. But as I said, the pace is not an issue. Norris certainly has the potential to be faster than Piastri in the majority of the next upcoming races. It's just about applying himself in the races, and luck decides championships. If Piastri has a mechanical issue akin to what Norris had in Zandvoort, it's all to play for. Norris is not only back in, he may even emerge as the favourite because the point situation can be turned on its head. But as I said, luck is a big factor, and I'm saying Norris needs to win 6 of the next 9 just to actually get back into contention, because right now there's still a title fight, obviously, but Norris is not realistically in contention. Even if Piastri has an engine failure now, Norris is still not in a position to, get back in the lead of the championship or get head-to-head with Piastri, even if he wins the race where Piastri has the failure and the race after, assuming Piastri finishes P2 in that. So, in terms of winning the majority of the races, the premise of that is simply for Norris to have that momentum to constantly put pressure on Piastri, because we've seen Piastri as an elite mentality, but we've not seen him in a high pressure crunch time end of the season. And I think that Norris can really prove everyone wrong in the most critical part of the season if he can perform, beat Piastri consistently, and be extremely resourceful, pounce when Piastri makes a mistake, do what he needs to do to win the championship. But right now, Piastri is definitely the firm favourite and the one out of the 2 McLaren drivers that seems the championship caliber driver. If Norris can beat him this year, I think he would deservedly so be called a championship caliber driver. Obviously, unless there's some extreme circumstances where Norris is so lucky, which at this point I doubt, because this engine failure has made him quite unlucky. But that's the situation now, and I'm excited to see what will happen. But I think a few races later we'll really see whether Norris can come back, because I think this Italian Grand Prix and the couple races after that is so important. Norris really needs to get a couple wins on his belt to bring himself back into contention to win the championship.